Rated E10 for ages 10 and up.
Hey! How you doing? My name's Chris Taylor. I am the Supreme Commander here at Gas Power Games, and I'm also the creative director and lead designer of our new RTS game called Supreme Commander. People ask me, Chris, what are some of your favorite strategies when playing Supreme Commander? Well, I'll tell you, there are all kinds of ways to play this game. Let's take the Quantum Tunnel over to Mission Control, where I can show you some of those strategies. Here we go. Oh, you gotta love the Quantum Tunnel. Welcome to Mission Control. All right, let's jump right in and talk about some strategies for Supreme Commander. When your Armored Command Unit first appears, you want to start thinking about economy. Get your economy built up. Look for mass deposits that are usually right in the area and start building mass extractors. Hold down the shift and actually shift-click those mass extractors into position so that your Armored Command Unit will build them all in sequence. Now, I also like to insert a couple of power generators in there. I put them right next to the mass extractor, and that'll give me an adjacency bonus, which is important early on in the game. I like to build a land factory or an air factory sometime around my second mass extractor so I can start producing more engineers. Now, this early build sequence is important, okay? And it lasts for the first 3 or 4 minutes of the game where you're really bootstrapping up your economy and you're getting your infrastructure built. I also like to pull out with the camera, and I like to identify the next available ring, if you will, of mass sites. And I might take an engineering unit, I might select the mass extractor, and shift-click and queue them up so that I can forget about that engineer for a while, and those mass extractors will come online. As I'm doing this, and I'm building up my base, I want to start thinking about my opponent. Am I playing on a gigantic land map where they can send land forces across at me, or am I on an island where they can't do that, so they're likely going to come across with air? Now, speaking of air and early air use, scouting is going to be very, very important throughout the entire game. If I don't know what my opponent's doing, then I'm not going to be able to formulate a strategy that really works, okay? So I want to get some scouts. They're cheap, they're fast. I want to get them up on some patrols. I want to overfly their base. Even if I lose my scout, it's okay. I'll get important intel on what they're doing, which is persistent and that I can study in the theater of war view. At some point here during the game, as we move from our mid to late game, we've got to start thinking about what strategy we're going to use to take our opponent down. And this is really important because if we don't make a move, our opponent will. And they're going to come in with something. Maybe some siege assault bots. Maybe they're going to shoot a nuke, which is terrific if I've got an anti-nuke. Okay? Maybe they're going to hit me from the sea because they've built up a fleet. Okay? And they've got it really well protected. So I've got to start thinking not just about my own strategy that's going to take down my opponent, but how could they come at me? Okay? And occasionally you throw the dice and you say, hey, listen, I'm going to go for a strategy here that I'm hoping my opponent isn't ready for. But sometimes they are, and you got to shift your strategy very quickly. See, that's the key to the game. You got to stay light on your feet, which brings me really to my last point. Probably the most important thing of all when playing Supreme Commander is always stay balanced, so that no matter what the strategy is, you can shift it fast and change the emphasis. Maybe you go from land to sea, from sea to air. You've really got to pay attention to your opponent, take in all the variables, and adjust your strategy to match the situation, okay? Because one strategy will not win this game.
Chris Taylor, engage in 5.
Sounds like the Quantum Tunnel is charged and ready. So I better get going. We'll see you on the battlefield.